Hello and a very warm welcome to this special conversation. The US President Donald Trump is putting on a show which continues to baffle many analysts back home. Do we look at Donald Trump's statements purely as political statements? Do we look at his statements as a businessman president statement? With me, two of the foremost voices in our country who can help us decode what Donald Trump is really trying to do by constantly equating India and Pakistan together. Well-known diplomatic ace, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, joining us live, and another well-known economic ace, Mitali Nikore, who keeps a close eye on everything related to Indian economic policy, joining us live as well. Great pleasure for us to be welcoming both of you to the Squirrels.in.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Ambassador Dayal, first up. And let me ask you to respond to the statement which has been made by the US president, where in Africa, he goes to the extent of equating India and Pakistan through the economic lens. His exact quote is that India and Pakistan can be great business partners, trade partners for the United States of America, and the US would like to do business with both these countries. How should we in India really be looking at this statement of President Trump?
Well, first of all, Bhupen, thanks for having me on your show. You know, when he speaks of being the greatest peacemaker, that he's the one who brought peace between India and Pakistan, and he said yesterday he offered trade deals. You know, he's appealing to his domestic audience. If you remember, during his election campaign, he had said that he would, on the very first day of assuming office, bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war and also to the Israel-Hamas war. And that has not happened. So he is left in a position where he appears to have claimed a lot, but he has not delivered. So when the India-Pakistan de-escalations happened and when there was a ceasefire, you would recall he was the first one to take credit. He said that I have brought about the ceasefire. Now, there is no doubt that the Pakistanis were in a difficult position and they could have appealed to him for assistance. At that same time, the Pakistani case for an IMF loan was before the IMF. And the United States is, of course, the most important country in the IMF. So there was some discussion between the Trump team and the Pakistani government. But did he have anything to do with India's decision making? Certainly not. Our government has made it very clear that it was the Pakistani DGMO who literally came on his knees and sought a ceasefire. And that is why we agreed to it. And we have again and again clarified that.
But Ambassador Dayal, I'm not clear on one thing, sir. Dr. Jaishankar, the foreign minister, has also, while speaking to the Western press, has reiterated what you've just told us, that it was the Pakistani side which reached out to us. I'm not on that point. I'm saying the ceasefire is there. And irrespective of who called whom, if America now wants to do business with Pakistan, pretty much in similar plane as it wants to do business with India, should we be worried? Should we be worried diplomatically, politically, economically in India?
You know, anyone who thinks that he or she can do business with Pakistan on the same scale as doing business with India is living in a world of illusions. Pakistan's economy is in shambles. They are in no condition whatsoever to develop their trade potential. Now, look at India-US trade. Last year, it was $131.84 billion, the bilateral trade. And what was the Pakistani figure? The Pakistani figure was 7.3 billion. So trade with India was 19 times what it was with Pakistan. And if the United States wants to increase trade with Pakistan, it has to ask itself, what will it do to do that? You know, what will it do to make trade with Pakistan come to that level as to be comparable with India? There's nothing possible. Now, let me be very categorical. The United States does see a huge potential in India's defense market. That is the number one reason why the United States is so interested in India. India needs state-of-the-art weaponry because of our security needs. We have China on the one hand, Pakistan on the other. Both are extremely hostile. Both are nuclear weapon states. So we need state-of-the-art weaponry, and we have been sourcing it from various countries. Of course, we have indigenized a lot of our requirements. We are making very, very good weapons, as BrahMos, for instance, and Akash. But we do need weapon systems from outside. And he sees India as a great potential, as a great market. Now, let me mention that India is the world's biggest importer of weapons. The United States is the world's biggest exporter. So there is some corollary that he sees in that equation. Let me also mention that when India was going to buy the S-400 missile air defense system from Russia, that Donald Trump had threatened that he would put sanctions against us, and later Biden, that India would be sanctioned if it went ahead with this. However, no sanctions happened. Why? Because if they were to put sanctions against India, how will they sell weapons to us? So that was only a threat which was empty. But the real reason is Donald Trump wants a very hostile environment for India.
I
And
see.
if Pakistan remains hostile, so much the better for US interests. All
And
this talk about
therefore that much more business sense perhaps for the US to continue to look at India and Pakistan through this hyphenated equation which had disappeared some time back. But Mitali, if I was to just take this point being made by Ambassador Dayal a little forward now, are we then saying that for the US defense manufacturers to be in the business play in this part of the world between India and Pakistan,
what Ambassador Dayal describes to be a greater sense of hostility in India, if there is a greater sense of hostility in India versus Pakistan, and if the US, which wants to sign a trade deal with India in the month of July,
if it continues to look at India and Pakistan through a hyphenated axis, what does it do to the overall macroeconomic indicators in India?
So I think, Bhupen, we have to kind of break this question down a little bit. First of all, the amount of trade is only one part of the story that Ambassador Dayal has very clearly laid out for us. I think what is also important is to understand where is the trade going, what are the trends, right? The defense industry is only one part of the trade. The second part of the trade lies in technology and space. These are two very important sectors, space exploration particularly, because I do believe that in the previous administration, when Biden was in charge, there was a lot of support that was given to ISRO that came from the US, in fact, in terms of technology transfer and technical assistance that started coming in, which was to build up the capacity of ISRO and to bring ISRO almost as a partner agency to some of their even public and private space exploration missions. So I think going forward, that was always one of the mindsets that was there in the previous administration. It remains to be seen if that still continues to be the case today. The second area is with respect to the market, the consumer market that India represents. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the interests of companies like Tesla coming into India and trying to capture a larger and larger piece of the Indian consumer and the Indian consumer market, that also becomes a very important part of the story. So if you continue to destabilize India, if you continue to threaten the growth of India, if you continue to hyphenate India and Pakistan, then that shrinks the consumer market that your own companies are eyeing, to get into in this region. And everybody knows that in Pakistan, the consumer market is extremely small and limited, mainly because of the high amount of income inequality that exists. Whereas, honestly, we all know in India, you can sell anything at any price point. You can bring something which is highly ultra luxury in the segment. You can bring something which is extremely, low in the segments as well, and you can.
But Mitali, won't that hold if we are in a state of perennial peace or perennial stability? That's why I'm a little concerned that if the US president, as Ambassador Dayal rightly points out, if the US president is hoping for an extended spell of hostility, all the great news that you're giving us about the Indian economy, the market, the luxury segment, does all this not get threatened then?
100% it does, Bhupen, which is why I'm saying that it makes absolutely no economic sense whatsoever for the US administration and the US president to continue in a protracted state of war or, a war-like situation. I think that it was important to send this message of Operation Sindoor and make it very clear to, all opposition countries and all the countries who threaten our sovereignty and our peace that India stands against terror. And I think that's why we took a very strong stance. But it's also commendable on the part of the government of India to take the stand of de escalation and say, for us, our growth is important. And therefore, we have to start looking at all countries, not just the US, in a very, methodical lens and say, what are we getting out of them? And what can they get trading out of us? For us, the technology piece is also very important when it comes to the US because nearly 75% of our IT sector exports are actually going to the US or US owned companies. So it's very important for us to keep on maintaining and growing that partnership and also making strides on artificial intelligence because AI today threatens the Indian IT industry's very existence. And we have to innovate.
Okay, Ambassador Dayal, let's look at the present scenario, sir. There are multiple teams of parliamentarians who are all now being sent to different corners of the world to try and buttress this point that India is a victim of terror and that India had to take this position, which it took against Pakistan. On one hand, we want to practice these diplomacy-oriented steps. On the other, when you're confronted with someone like a Donald Trump, who we all thought was an ally, and if Donald Trump's positioning is what it is becoming now, how do you think we should deal with the Americans? Is it purely a business transactional relationship with the United States of America, which is possible, you think?
When you remind me of that old saying that there are no friends, there are no enemies. In international relations, there are only interests. America's interests are such that to some extent they run alongside us, but not always. Now, let me be very clear in stating that, as I said in the beginning, Donald Trump is living under some illusion if he thinks that he can hyphenate India and Pakistan, even in matters of trade. India is already the world's fourth largest economy and fast moving towards becoming the third largest economy. The purchasing power of the average Indian, as Mitali was pointing out, is much, much greater because in Pakistan, the income divide is so severe.
Right.
Now, in Pakistan, the economy is in shambles. Now, when Trump says that he wants to increase trade, what he is really hinting at is that he wants the other country to facilitate imports from the United States. It's not that he is going to make imports from the other country easier. In fact, he is very keen on putting tariffs wherever he deems it necessary. The fact is, he wants to push America's exports high. That's what he means by increasing trade. Now, what is the condition of Pakistan's economy? It is in a mess. It has taken loans from all over the place and it's not able to pay those back. And in any case, the opening up of the Pakistan economy doesn't make any sense because of the fact that who wants to go and invest in Pakistan when there is the insurgency going on in Balochistan?
But here's the problem. Here's the problem, Ambassador. Bang in the middle of this conflict with Pakistan, we all saw how the United States of America struck a trade deal with the Chinese. Now Trump is saying, I'm going to strike a trade deal with India and I'm going to strike a trade deal with Pakistan. We all know the nature of our relationship with China. We don't know to what extent can we trust the Chinese. We've seen what has happened in Bangladesh. How do you evaluate this latest deal within deal which is being made by Trump, where he's clearly using business and trade not just as a form of diplomacy, but perhaps as a form of a stronger bargaining chip on the table? How do we look at this move, sir?
Trump has always been transactional in his activities, in the manner he deals with other countries. And he has made it clear in his interaction with us. Now, surely he would be wanting to have some sort of an equation with Pakistan. He may see in Pakistan some potential, but good luck to him. Pakistan, as I was pointing out, is a country whose economy is in shambles. Pakistan is running all over the place trying to get loans. It is so heavily in debt. The Chinese have sunk it in a morass of debt. And if Trump wants to do business with that country and he hopes to sell American products there, good luck to him. Because the Pakistanis really don't have the capacity to sort of fulfill his aspirations. They want aid. Free stuff is all right. But if Trump thinks that it's a market of the sort that India is, then he is mistaken. That is all I can say.
Okay. Mitali, then final question to you. If Ambassador Dayal is clear that America is missing the wood for the trees, America is perhaps making a big mistake. Maybe the advisors to Donald Trump are making him see a story maybe which doesn't exist. But let's just remain focused on India for a moment. If let's say all these statements which are coming from Pakistan, these statements which are coming from Donald Trump, our market has continued to perform in a certain manner that it has been performing. Do you see any potential, Mitali, of a state of confusion? Maybe because of all these statements which are being made by Trump. One day he doesn't want Tim Cook to produce in India. One day he wants to hyphenate trade between India and Pakistan with the United States of America. Any potential of all these statements being made by the US president to impact our domestic markets?
So I think, Bhupen, there are two impacts, and I think two impacts which are very important. The impact of the first impact, which will be felt on the Indian industry, will be the impact of the trade deal that is finally struck between the US and India. That will have a macroeconomic impact because that will be a sector level discussion of what kind of tariffs will prevail finally, what kind of duties will be there, what kind of checks will be there, what kind of compliance and quality testing will be there, because sometimes countries use non-tariff barriers also to restrict trade. It's not only tariffs, but you can just say, I want your mangoes to be of XYZ quality. As we saw, nearly $500,000 of worth of mangoes were destroyed at the US border recently, which were
Right.
exported from India. It's quite a crime as a mango lover, I must say. And but at the end of the day, these kind of non-tariff barriers can also come in, even if the trade deal is favorable in certain commodities and certain sectors. So I think that will be one macro level impact. The second is we are looking at the investor appetite as well. India is a country that receives a lot of funds from venture capitalists, from investors, in large institutional investors who want to come to our markets, who want to invest in our startups, who want to look at innovative companies that are being created by the youth of India. Now, if they get a negative signal, then they would be the ones also who would say, okay, let's pull back a little bit. Maybe let's not put in, 1 billion, let's put in, say 700 million. I mean, it's not like the money will stop coming, but somewhere we will start to see that, there's a little bit of a cliff off. So
Right.
I do think that these statements have an impact in the short run, but the strength of the Indian growth, the strength of India's innovation, the strength of the kind of work and the kind of markets we are creating here, I don't believe that in the long run they will have any sort of material impact. Maybe in the short run they'll say, let's hold on by a quarter, but that's
All right.
about
Ambassador Dayal.
Well, Trump has probably forgotten what he himself said when he took over as president in his first term.
Okay.
He had said, we gave Pakistan billions of dollars in aid, and in return, they only gave us terrorism. We all remember his famous words. He
Right.
seemed to have forgotten. Let him try and do trade with Pakistan. Let him try and develop some kind of a relationship. He will know that the Pakistanis will only bite him as they did earlier, because the export of terrorism is their strength. That is what they indulge in. That is inevitable. So let him learn from his mistakes. And as far as India-US trade is concerned, we are keen to develop it. And Mitali pointed out the various aspects which need to be focused on. There is a lot of work for us. I hope the trade deal around the corner. We have been very, very nice. We didn't impose any counter tariffs, although there has been some talk of doing that. But nonetheless, we are keen to have the Indo-US trade deal signed as soon as possible and build a healthy economic partnership.
All right, Mitali Nikore and Ambassador Dayal, thank you so much for joining us and turning the spotlight squarely on this subject. I think, Ambassador Dayal, you put it well there, that if the only product that Pakistan has to export is terror, then who, in the name of God, is going to do business with that kind of an economy? But thank you so much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.